And we are live. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to TheTwenty International Break, Episode 4. What waffle can we talk about this week? Because there's now in the Premier League to talk about, or is there? Right, so let's start off, gentlemen, by talking about all of the managerial chess that has been played in the last week or so. Martin, kick us off, baby boy.
Well, you've got Dean Smith losing his job on Monday and getting a new job by Saturday. It's not a bad life, this, is it? Get paid off. Looks like Dean Smith out at Aston Villa, as we talked about. Steven Gerrard leaving Rangers to go and take up the post at Aston Villa on a 3.5-year deal. That's the big shock. 3.5 years. So that means they think he's a long-term project. But looks like Dean Smith, it was reportedly going to be Frank Lampard. But after initial talks, Lampard does not see himself flying high with the Canaries. It's going to be Dean Smith, it looks like, going in at Delia Smith's Norwich. So, yeah.
So what does that mean for Norwich? Does that mean Norwich are going to rally the troops and find a way to stay up? Or are they just doomed and they're appointing Dean Smith because he's a manager that can get them out of the Championship like Daniel Farke was? Rich, what's the story?
I think Dean Smith's probably a manager to steady the ship and bring them back up rather than being a manager to keep them up. They certainly haven't gone down that Tony Pulis or Sam Allardyce route, and Dean Smith seems to be a bit longer term to me.
Okay, fair enough. Ryan, who is the modern day Sam Allardyce or Tony Pulis?
Sam Allardyce and Tony Pulis, pretty much.
I mean, Neil Warnock as well. Are they actually still live and kicking? You know what I mean?
Neil Warnock, he's
just been sacked by Middlesbrough, so yeah, could get Neil Warnock in or something depressing like that. But yeah, I think Dean Smith was my favourite to get favourite to get sacked first last year, and yeah, I mean.
So
sure.
You and Martin have got this thing against Dean Smith because Martin's brought it up before. I always thought that he was the right man for the job at Aston Villa.
I mean, can we just say
how many new signings?
Confirmed?
No, I know it's not how many. I know it's not 100% confirmed. But when he was at Aston Villa, he brought in 10 new players or something like that this season, and brought in, and lost Jack Grealish, and then we're 11 games into a Premier League season and they've already booted him out. And I don't know, it just seems a little bit weird. All of the sackings felt weird to me. The Steve Bruce one at Newcastle was weird and pointless. The Daniel Farke one was weird and pointless. There's one or two managers in the Premier League that should have absolutely been sacked, and any rational club would have sacked him. Like Solskjaer would have gone from United if it was any other club.
But I think Farke's pointless and Bruce is pointless because I think Bruce is a better manager to keep Newcastle in the league compared to, say, Eddie Howe, and I think Norwich are relegated anywhere, whereas Villa are genuinely just underperforming and their manager is meh.
Yeah, I get the underperforming side of it, but the Daniel Farke at Norwich, because he's the guy that gets you out of the Championship, and you go in there anyway, so why sack him? Same with Steve Bruce. Steve Bruce can get you back out of the Championship, so why are you sacking him? At least have a long-term strategy in place. Steve Gerrard going to Aston Villa, I mean, whatever. I did have a Rangers fan coming on tonight, and I am a part-time Rangers supporter, but Steven Gerrard was competent at Rangers. He was competent. He had a good backroom staff surrounding him. He had a decent amount of wage budget and a decent amount of money to spend on players. He did bring in good players like Alfredo Morelos and stuff like that. I wonder if Alfredo Morelos is going to find his way into the Premier League anytime soon because of Steve Gerrard. But I don't know. I don't understand how a manager has 11 games to make 10 new players bed in. I'm not with you on that one, gentlemen.
So do you think then that Tottenham were harsh on Santos then getting rid of him after
No, I don't think Tottenham were harsh on him because Tottenham for 8 years now have been one step away from being consistent in the top four. And they've been one step away for 8 years from winning a trophy, and now they've gone to a mid-table club. So that's not hard because the things that Santos did with Wolverhampton Wanderers were miraculous. He had a good set of players. He bought the right set of players, and it was the right size club for him. But Tottenham Hotspurs, what they needed at Tottenham was someone to make them be concrete in the top four, not someone to make them be concrete in the middle of the table. That is a massive step backwards.
I think Charlie's right in the thread. Spurs never really wanted Santos. They interviewed about 20 people. And it was Spurs' mistake. They just bottled it. I mean, it should be Levy who's walking after the debacle in the summer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not the manager, but it was never going to work because he was working for a club who didn't even want him in the first place, even though they gave him the job.
Now, that being said, though, I don't think that Santos is a bad manager. I just don't think he was ever the right manager for Tottenham. So, I mean, and you have to, like Richard said, you absolutely have to blame Daniel Levy because
Levy or Paratici, their new managing director.
So, I mean, listen, to bring someone like Nuno in, it was bold. You've got to give him that, but it was completely misguided. And as we all know, it was like number 8 or 9 on the list of people they wanted anyway. So yeah, just whatever, just desperation from Tottenham, and Tottenham would be lucky if they're in the top 4 in the next 2 or 3 years again. Because I mean, Conte's a better manager for that type of club than Nuno was, but he's got all sorts of rebuilding to do. Anyone who walks into Tottenham's got all sorts of rebuilding to do.
I know you want to move on. I'll make a very bold prediction here. I think Conte will be out of Tottenham within 18 months.
I think he'll walk. I mean, I'm not sure, Rob.
That is dynamite ready to go boom.
Because he one thing goes against him and his principles, he'll walk. And I just don't see how a manager like Conte can work with someone like Levy.
Yeah.
Because Levy's going to do something that Levy wants to do that Conte doesn't want to do because he's Levy in the next 6-12 months. Conte's going to walk and Spurs are going to be left probably 2/3 of the way through a season with a manager having walked.
It's not that, Mitch. It's the fact is Tottenham cry out for entertaining, sexy football, and they go and hire Conte.
There is that, yeah.
It's absolute.
And the other things as well. I mean, you look at that Tottenham squad. It has got competent players in it. Son is a fantastic player. Yeah. Harry Kane, if Harry Kane applied himself, is a decent Premier League striker. I know I'm going to get hate for that because of all the goals he scored. Blah blah blah. Mr. Stats Paddo. They've got a competent midfield and they've got a competent defence and goalkeeper. It just needs somebody to translate that into winning football. Conte will do that in the short term, but I don't think that Conte is a long term. Is Daniel Levy really going to give Conte 250 million next season?
No,
he's not, is he? He's not, is he? So
apparently they got 400 million.
Right. Well, listen, seriously, if Martin, if Daniel Levy gives Conte 400 million to spend on rebuilding that team, I'll give you 400 million. I don't even have 400 million because I'm that confident it won't happen, right?
No, it was due to the new FFP where during the week the FFP things come out and Tottenham have got the biggest. They've got like 400 million to spend before the break.
Yeah, I think with Spurs it's an interesting one. I think Nuno was never they wanted him. He didn't want to go. Then they went in for him again. He eventually decided to go, and it's just not worked out. I mean, he was crap last year at Wolves, which was a combination of injury and the addition of Europe in a squad that wasn't rotated at all the season beforehand. But Spurs, I don't think they're going to be challenging for top 4 for another few years. I think Conte might, maybe get them it. But he's not going to necessarily win anything.
Moving back to Villa briefly, what do you think the expectations are on Steven Gerrard? Just to not get relegated at this point, or what?
Yeah, just not to get relegated. But with Gerrard, I think it was I don't know why he's left Rangers halfway through a season. I think the move would have made more sense if it was at the end of the season. He said his goodbyes to Rangers, but leaving halfway through the season to go to a underperforming team that spent so much money that still might get relegated. Like, I am begging that we relegate him on the last day and win the title. Especially if it's like, I really hope Chelsea are out, like, fall apart, and it's literally us versus Liverpool going into the final day. And all we need to do is beat Villa. We beat Villa, we relegate him, and beat Liverpool to the title.
Or Aston
that would be
Villa,
beautiful.
or Aston Villa come back, win the league, and Steven Gerrard, after 20 years failing to win the league at Anfield, wins the league first season at Villa.
But then walks down the sideline and slips.
I'm just interested to know whether Steven Gerrard's brought the people that made him successful at Rangers with him, because honestly, his backroom staff was pretty decent.
Yeah, apparently they've all
It was
gone.
well thought
McAllister and everyone's gone with him.
I mean, it's a reality is for whatever, John Hartson, whoever it was, it says going into the Premier League and going to manage a team who do have ambitions for top four and will spend the money. It's a decent opportunity for him. I don't blame him for his.
Charlie raises a great point. Imagine Jack Grealish scores a hat trick to relegate Villa on the last day.
Listen, I do understand, Rich. I do understand, Rich, what you're saying there about, but the money to spend, they've just spent a hell of a lot of money, Rich. They've spent over 100 million.
Spent a hell of a lot of money when they came the first season they came up.
And they'll spend more, and that's what he knows, that he's going to a club who will spend more than, with the exception of City, United, Chelsea, Liverpool. Villa will probably spend more money than anyone else in that league, apart from maybe Newcastle now. And they've got some decent players, and I think it's I think it's a good club to take over. He'll be expected to keep them up, not narrowly, but probably reasonably comfortably. He'll be expected to get them comfortably top half of the season after. But he's got a project to build. I think it's a good opportunity. Apart from the fact you have to live in Birmingham.
I don't necessarily think it was not a good opportunity. I just don't see why he's gone halfway through a season to go there. I think he could have easily waited till the summer to get a decent Premier League job.
Is there any timeline for the Liverpool job, do you think, Ryan? Do you think the timeline for a Liverpool job might be sort of a factor? Because I think that the ultimate disaster is in 5 years' time that Steven Gerrard's a Liverpool boss, because I think that job's way too big for him. But it's great for us.
Well, so it's not a disaster. That's brilliant.
Yeah. But I'm saying, do you think, somebody said to him, right, you come down to Villa now, and then within 5 years you've got the hot seat at Liverpool. Do you think that's part of this plan?
I think in his
not
head.
Necessarily, because I think he'd have got the job regardless. I think he'll get the Liverpool, or at least be offered the Liverpool job regardless, whether he'd stayed at Rangers or not.
Yeah, and this is the danger of a club that thinks with its heart instead of its head, because Steven job's way too big for Steven Gerrard. No offence against him, but I mean, right, Frank Lampard's been thrown in the mix again for managerial positions. Why is he not getting another job?
Well, he, by all accounts, is only interested in certain types of job, and he's, by all accounts, have been approached by quite a number of clubs, some of them not in the Premier League, about jobs, but he's holding out for, I don't know what he's holding out for, but he's holding out for something.
Follow me to go.
Can he go to Rangers?
No.
England job.
I genuinely believe with Lampard. I mean, I saw a little fact about Lampard the other day when they were talking to Norwich that I thought was hilarious. He's got more money than the owner. And it's like, that just tells you everything you need to know. He's richer than Delia Smith, one of the principal owners. So I do think he's probably sat there, looked at that, and thought, "Hang on, this really where I want." Got to remember, this guy was the Chelsea manager 12 months ago. One of the biggest teams in England, the favourites for the league, European champions.
As the point we've made with Gerrard, that was a job far too big for him. He was
I don't know
fine. As
Chelsea fans still love him. They thought he did an okay job at Chelsea at the panic box.
I don't think they think he did an okay job.
Oh, they do.
He was,
some do, Ryan. I've seen it. And
some do, but that's partially because of what a player he was. I don't think it's anything to do with how he was as a manager there, because as a manager he was pretty crap.
You
can make the point. He was pretty crap. He did nothing. He brought through a couple of youth players because of a transfer ban, not because, as a point that you will keep making about Rodgers, he'll bring through youth. No. Same with we should get, Martin's probably going to say, we should get Frank Lampard as manager.
Hang on. Rodgers does bring youth.
No, Man, you'll probably try and say if we should get Frank Lampard, he'll bring you through at City because, you know, he was obligated to at Chelsea. He got the Chelsea job based off nothing because he was fine at Derby. He got them worse positions than they did the year previous, but, you know, we'll gloss over that, and then lost the playoffs.
Well,
Whoop-de-doo.
listen, Ryan, hold on, Martin, hold on. Ryan, at the time for Chelsea, it was a free gamble. They could play a free
Yeah,
hand.
it was a free gamble. They could do whatever they wanted.
So we'll never know what Frank Lampard at
As
Chelsea
soon
would
as
have been
the
like
pressure
with a say,
As
let's say
soon
he
as
had
the
a 200
pressure
million
got
budget.
big on him, and he did have a budget, he flopped.
Okay, so anything else you want to say about any of our Premier League managers before we move on to the main body of this conversation? Rich, you look like you want to say something.
No, well, you know, I'm the one I'm most interested how it goes in some ways is Eddie Howe, because that's the one that actually surprises me the most, because he seems like a halfway house in a way, in that, you know, I kind of think Newcastle needed a temporary dogs of war manager to keep them up, of which Steve Bruce would probably have been as good an option as anyone. And then they needed a really long-term manager. And in Eddie Howe, they seem to have tried to go for a long-term manager, but one they obviously think has got experience in the Premier League at fighting relegation. So they've obviously gone for this halfway house. And I'm interested to see whether that works, because there's part of me that thinks it's going to take them down. And if he does, do they then keep him, or do they then go for someone else? I mean, he's probably as good a manager as there is to bring them back up. But then as soon as they get promoted, does that mean they're then going to go and bring in their big name long-term manager then?
This is why the halfway house approach,
messy.
like, I fear for Eddie Howe, because I said this last week as well. Eddie Howe is sort of, he's an all-round good guy. If you ask anyone what you think of Eddie Howe, yeah, decent manager at Bournemouth. He stayed with the club. He committed his long-term future for the club. He did really well on a small budget. Although Martin said that he had hundreds of millions to spend, he did spend money, but it wasn't, you know. And eventually it got the better of him, and he got relegated. But he was a man that knew that club inside out, backwards. Knew the tea lady's name, knew the program seller's name, and all the rest of it. And I just feel like him going to Newcastle at the minute. Newcastle is like the Battle of the Somme. Everything's in upheaval. Everything about that club is in upheaval. So is he the kind of guy that will win you a relegation fight? For me, Steve Bruce was the dog of war that they needed, and they've got rid of him. But good luck to Eddie Howe. And I do hope that, as you said there, if Eddie Howe does stave off relegation, or if he gets them promoted again in 2 seasons' time, that they don't just get rid of him to get some big name in, because I think that would be the ultimate sort of betrayal, and it would show piss poor management ability from them. Right, so
agree.
The main body of this tonight is, as we all know, most of the Premier League players, certainly from the big clubs, have been on international duty. So we're going to do a bit of a round robin now, starting with Martin. You've got 8 teams. Rich has got 8 teams, and that doesn't make sense. 7 teams. So you and Rich have got 7 teams. Ryan's got 6. And we're going to start with Martin, go to Ryan, Rich, and then work our way around that. We're going to talk about all the different teams. We're going to talk about how their players have performed in the international break, and if there's any injury news or anything like that. So Martin, take it away, buddy boy.
Well, I'm going to start off with our very own Manchester City. Yes, Rob, he's probably cheering at this one, but Jack Grealish has come back to the CFA. He has got an unknown injury at the moment. Nobody knows fully what it is, but he's out of the San Marino game tomorrow evening. Now, he did take part in the Albania game on Friday. I say take part, they were 5-0 up, and then he decided to swap with Phil Foden. So when you're 5-0 up, he didn't really. But at some point, he's done something and he's come back to the CFA. The big thing is, all the news come out today, Rasmus Sterling has left the England camp for unknown reasons, unknown personal reasons, is what we've been told. So we're not going to speculate, we're not going to guess, we're not going to do everything else. All we know is he's come back for unknown personal reasons. So he's no longer with the England team. Cole Palmer was another one who got a slight hamstring injury in England's 3-1 under-21 game win over Czech Republic. And apparently he was there. Everyone sort of panicked a bit. And then he was on Instagram and said, I'll see you all soon. It's not that bad, which sort of got everyone a bit more relieved. And then the final one is Bubblegum himself, man of the moment, man of the season, Bernardo Silva, who was not trained all week hardly for Portugal. Didn't take part in their first couple of games. But the good news is he has started tonight against Serbia in their front three. Charlie, let me finish before you jump into the comments, mate. Yes, Bernardo Silva has started alongside some other clown at Manchester United player anyway. So, yeah, that's Manchester City and what they've done. So, Jack Grealish is out. Do you want me to go on to the next teams, Rob, or do you want me to go into that?
Question is, I've got a question. Do you think that maybe Grealish isn't injured and he's just returned because of all the stories in the press about his, romantic life?
But maybe, but I think surely from a City perspective, we want him to be having a game that he might actually perform well in San Marino. I mean, they're not very good. He might have actually looked like a half-decent player against them. So with Jack Grealish, it's a difficult one. He needs to perform for both England and for City, and at the moment he can't seem to get a look in the England team over the players there. I don't know why he's returned. Same with Sterling, but other than that, it's interesting.
Well, there's about 20 of them. That was the problem. So I went down the most important ones. Well, yeah. So go on, Rich.
I was saying, I think the interesting thing with Bernardo coming back in Portugal is, for all the talk about Ronaldo and Bruno and how wonderful they are, is when they had a game they thought they could rest players last week, it was City players who got rested, and coming in for the big game tonight, and I had Bruno straight out the side, Bernardo straight in the side. And I think just saying what we all know,
Bernardo has an assist already.
Yeah, their best player now.
Well, they're playing right now.
So, Martin, to ask you, are there any other City players that need to be talked about before we move on to Ryan?
Well, there's Kevin De Bruyne for Belgium, who has a torrid start for Manchester City, but he has lit up Belgium again with a great performance for his country. So the good thing is, I know KDB came out, I think it was 2 or 3 days ago, with a comment that he has been carrying a lot of niggles, a lot of pain within his body. He did say right at the beginning he was in absolute agony playing, but that has eased and eased and eased over time. And we have speculated on here, especially, that Kevin De Bruyne has been injured. I think you mentioned, Rob, you thought he was playing with painkilling injections, possibly, things like that.
Just reminded me of David Silva. That about 3 or 4 years ago, David Silva played a season and he looked about a yard off the pace. And at the end of the season, he came out and says, I've been having painkilling injections in my foot every week. So it just seems like one of those. What about other City players? What's going on with Cole Palmer? I heard he got a bit of an injury.
Yeah, he got an hamstring in England under 21's 3-1 win over Czech Republic. But I said, it was on Instagram and said, because I think everyone with an hamstring, if it's a tear or whether it's a pull, when it's a pull, you're looking maybe 2 or 3 weeks tear, you're looking at 6 to 10 weeks, depending on what grade of a tear it is. But it looks like it's only a slight pull, because he did go on Instagram and say, I will be back soon, don't worry, all fine, which is good, because he is someone who's sort of on the breakthrough into the Manchester City first team, so we want to keep him. There you go.
And one thing about City that, Mahrez was actually rested, but Algeria won 4-0 again against Djibouti, and they're now unbeaten in 32 games. 5 games off the world record. 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 5 games off the world record
So, Ryan, over to your first team.
For my first team of the ones you've given me, I'm going to go with the mighty West Ham United, because I think they've got a couple talking points. Obviously, you have Mikel Antonio, who's making his first appearance for Jamaica since changing his allegiances from England. And he got a goal in his first game against El Salvador. It was quite a good goal, even if the opposition probably wasn't of the level of say any team that England will be playing, but it is what it is. You also have a couple other players that have been featuring for them. You have Ben Rama, who got a goal and assist in that game against Djibouti that Rich just mentioned. They have a lot of players for Czech Republic. Kufal is out, Kral and Souček, but I don't believe played yet. I think they're playing either over the next couple of days. Yeah. Not sure if it's Wales specifically, but it's over the next couple of days, that game. Other than that, you have Masuaku, who's... Why?
I'm concerned about the West Ham boys going away, because West Ham are on such a run. You don't want it to end. At least I don't want it to end anyway, being a newfound West Ham fan like I am.
Yeah, well, Masuaku's featured quite a bit for DR Congo. He came off the bench in the first game they played against Tanzania, and then played again against Benin, where they kept a clean sheet in both games. But other than that, it's not been a big window of international break for West Ham, but the players that have featured have done fairly well for their countries.
Good. I mean, West Ham, I know, Rob, you love West Ham, don't you? You are the newfound fan, forever blowing bubbles. I genuinely think West Ham will tail off. I just do. I know you're hoping they won't, but I just think they've got a lot of players now who are going to internationals. They've got Europe.
Well, I just want to support a team that takes the Carabao Cup seriously. That's all I want, really.
Oh, 1 year out of 5.
Right, Richard.
Shocking, man.
Richard, your first club, buddy boy. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, so my first one, I'll talk about Chelsea. Chelsea had a huge number of players going on international duty, but I think there's three things that stood out for me that probably, deserve a bit of a conversation out. One was actually, England bringing in Reece James finally for a game. Considering Reece James is up against the greatest player in the world in Trent Alexander-Arnold, possibly the greatest player to ever play the game. Amazing that he can get in the team. But he was given a go, which I actually must admit I would have probably played James ahead of Trippier in the summer, because I think he's, whilst he's probably not quite as good attacking wise as Arnold is, he's actually a better defender. And I think the fact in the Champions League final we had to play Sterling to negate James as a tactical thing we did shows how much respect Pep had for him. So that was an interesting one, with how do you play Walker, but also bring in a player like James who's definitely international standard. I think the next Chelsea player to talk about is Jorginho, because he was in the news because he managed to do a penalty that made Mahrez and Bruno's penalties look pretty good. So he was, I think a couple of minutes before the end of the game, had a chance to actually seal Italy's qualification, and he smashed it an absolute country mile over the goal. So that left Italy still fighting for whether they'll get automatically to the World Cup, I think, with Switzerland. There's a few teams out there, I think Portugal, Spain, Italy, who still have a bit of doubt on everything. And then for the sledge, I think Pulisic playing for the United States. They played their big rivals, Mexico, and before the game, Ochoa, the very experienced Mexican goalkeeper, had made a comment in the media that he basically said Mexico is the mirror at which the US wants to see itself. And so Pulisic scores, he pulls up his shirt, Mario style, and he just had "man in the mirror" written on his t-shirt and showed it to the Mexican team, and the USA ended up winning that 2-0. Doesn't appear from, I mean, obviously a lot of other Chelsea players were in squads around Europe. I haven't heard any injury news from those other games, but you know, it's frightening now, and looking into this, just how many, even the, you know, relegation Premier League clubs are sending off, you know, 5, 6, 7 players for full internationals, and another 3 or 4 for under 21s, and another 4 for friendlies. It's staggering the amount of players just going off at these clubs. So they were the Chelsea stories.
Roger that, Chief. Anyone got anything to say about that? Chelsea, our title rivals. Reece James, by the way. Oh, how I wish he was a City Academy player. Oh, actually, no, I don't, because he'd never get a game.
So, see, what we apparently the rumours were we did inquire about him.
Well, either way, I'm glad that Reece James exists, because I think he's fantastic. He's a different type of player. So the world's best right back is Kyle Walker. Trent Alexander-Arnold's a waffle merchant. I'm just glad, even though Reece James is a different type of player to Kyle Walker, I'm just glad that we've got another excellent right back coming through in the Premier League, and he'll do well for England as well in years to come. If England can get Trent Alexander waffle merchant out of their system, put him like in midfield or something, or on the wing, because he's not a defender.
But
although Ryan would say he is.
He hasn't got much of a look in, has he, recently? I mean, he's played one game recently. I think the trouble with, and this is, you know, probably all of us, the trouble with Arnold is any player at Liverpool gets so overhyped that, you know, they are never anything like, as a footballer, the hype the Liverpool fans give them, and it just puts you off them. It's impossible not to get deeply irritated by Liverpool players because of the hype. Yeah, you know, like, absolutely. Whereas Reece James, I don't think he's hyped that much. I think he's a very, very good footballer, solid in most aspects, but he's not hyped in the way that if he was at Liverpool or United.
Well, if it counts as hype from me, every time I've seen him, I've been very impressed. Very impressed. So I guess that's hype. It's not rabid fanboy hype. Like, if it did it in a, that Reece James, like, it's world class, mate. He's world class. He's gonna win fucking 25 Champions Leagues, mate. Right, Martin. Next team, buddy boy.
That was awful.
Well, that's just, I can't even be. It's a half-assed Scouse impression, because they're a half-assed people. You know what I mean?
Oh, do you know what? That's actually a really good intro, because next we're heading to Liverpool in the northwest. So Liverpool, yeah. I'm going to start off with a bit of a nice one. Mohamed Salah was the star man for Egypt yet again in his 2-2 draw in Angola. Got 2 assists, but that wasn't even the story of the game. The story of the game was that a fan ran on the pitch and tried to hug him, or did hug him, wanted a selfie. There was, and apparently he was dead nice. He was dead accommodating. It wasn't a big hoo-ha, get away from me sort of thing. So I think it was known as a nice touch by everyone. So that's, you know, shows Mohamed Salah is human and can be a lovely person. He doesn't let the hype go to his head, but he was the star man in Egypt's 2-2. And Egypt have now qualified for the World Cup, thanks to that, as they go on to take Gabon on Tuesday. So, yeah.
Why are they taking Gabon?
Right, I don't know. Is it Gabon? I don't know how you pronounce
Gabon.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a joke, Martin.
But G-H-E-O-N. How do you manage to? How do you think you've mispronounced Gabon?
No, because Rob was making the joke. I didn't actually know whether I'd actually mispronounced it. Anyway, the next bit for Liverpool is Jordan Henderson. Jordan Henderson has pulled out injured.
That absolute waffle merchant. He's the worst player of all time.
He's injured. He's out. You know, he
Is it
took
actually
part.
possible to tell whether Jordan Henderson's injured or not by looking at him play?
Well, no, well, the amount of injuries that are coming out of England and they're all unknown and no one knows is absolutely astonishing. They're all going back for scans. What do the England physios actually do?
But it's possible that because it's seen as such an easy game, that they've picked these players and they've said, we don't really need you. And so it may be some of them are going back for very minor reasons, just for precautions. Because if you think about it, we're always complaining about the way Belgium treats De Bruyne. You know, if Southgate isn't thinking of using a Sterling or, even a Grealish, then to actually give them back to the clubs a week early, to get minor things looked at, is really building goodwill. And I reckon before next year's World Cup, that's a smart move. And it may not be the case, but I reckon that might well be the case. And Southgate's trying to build goodwill for next year.
Well, it is down as an unspecified injury. That's what it's down as. And then, so obviously we'll find out more. And then the next one is Sadio Mane, sadly injured. Not that sadly for us, but he is injured. He went up and he collided for Senegal against Togo. Went up, collided with a defender. And he.
How do you mispronounce Togo?
Pardon?
How do you mispronounce Togo as Toga?
I said Togo. Togo.
You didn't.
Yeah.
So anyway, and he's now been sent back. He's waiting for an X-ray. So Sadio Mane, Liverpool have actually got quite a lot out. They've got Milner, they've got Keita, they've got Mane now. Now, the only thing I'd say about Mane, because I've not seen it, I've not seen the footage, is this a way of him not going to the AFCON? He's suddenly injured, needs an X-ray. Bye-bye.
Where's your Martin, you need to put a tinfoil hat on if you're going to start this.
I know if I'm going to start those sort of conspiracies, I just find it a bit weird that he suddenly needs an X-ray 3 or 4 weeks after AFCON. Yeah, maybe I don't know, but hey, there you go.
I reckon a lot of those players, Martin, take playing for their country pretty seriously. So,
you think you would in the AFCON?
The players who go off to the, I think if you were, if
I think it depends who you're playing for.
From international football,
isn't Tortuga?
I think Senegal have a pretty good chance of probably winning the thing. They have one of the better teams in the competition, so I don't see why he wouldn't take it overly I don't see why he wouldn't take it seriously. Plus, I don't think they'd send him back to get an X-ray for Liverpool's benefit. I don't see why that would be the case.
No, I don't think it's a conspiracy. I think a lot of those players are incredibly proud of going back to play for their country, and Mane, by all accounts, actually sends a huge amount of his money back to home and does a lot there. So I think it's probably genuine. It would be funny if he got fit. Yeah, but we've done most big teams so far. I think we'll have some.
Hang on, I've got loads on Newcastle, loads on Southampton. That's not
awful. So I think carrying on from Martin's point about people hugging players, we'll move on to Man United, where Portugal did absolutely nothing. Dalot, Bruno, and Ronaldo did absolutely nothing. But Ronaldo hugged a girl, so it's all fine. And as Martin says, it proves he has a human side.
They did nothing, but he hugged. I love it.
They did nothing, but he hugged a young Irish kid, so that's all nice. Other than that, I mean, Harry Maguire scored against Albania, so he's now one of the best centre-backs in the world, of course. Luke Shaw was called up to the England team despite his injury in the derby against City. Lindelof lost to Georgia, Martin's favourite country, so that was a great performance for Sweden. David De Gea didn't feature for Spain, but those two teams are playing, I believe, at the moment.
Yeah.
And then I think the big talking point for Man United was probably Pogba withdrawing from the France squad because of injury. Injury to his thigh, whether that's just a ploy to get him out the international break. But given his recent suspension, I don't know why that would be the case.
Well, I thought the big story for United was what was Harry Maguire doing? Doing that.
He was silencing the haters.
That
Come on.
celebration, like, for me, players have done that when they've been very unfairly treated by fans of other clubs, or they've done it when, they've been playing against a racist crowd and they're making some. What's Harry Maguire doing that for? Is he saying, "Oh,
because he's been"?
I was very confused. Now I'm one step removed from you lot because I'm not an England fan, but Roy Keane was on the commentary team, right, or something like that for that game.
Yeah.
So why is Roy Keane commentating on an England game? Bit weird. And then Roy Keane put him in the mud because he celebrated scoring a goal. The team that he scored it against were cabbage farmers. Honestly, Harry Maguire is he is the definition of slabhead. It's just unbelievable. It's like, was he really? He's been so bad
had a fight with him if he'd have done that.
But how bad have Manchester United been this season, and how bad has Harry Maguire been this season? Yet he thinks that a goal is that silences the haters. It's just and like Rich said,
to go against Albania.
Well, yeah, but this is what I'm saying though. Like Rich said, look, when Raheem Sterling or Bukayo Saka or someone like that makes this point to the racists and all the rest of it, when there's the monkey chanting or the boo and all the rest of it, it's a very, very powerful image in the newspaper headlines of them cupping their ears. But Harry Maguire doing it for scoring a header against Albania. I mean, Waffle FC.
And what's his message? I'm playing shit, but that doesn't matter. Is that I'm earning loads of money? I don't care what you think, fans. Is that what he's saying? It's just absolute embarrassing.
Well, I mean, it's like Manchester United, isn't it? Embarrassing all round. Right. Yeah. So okay, so let's go. Let's try and speed up this round robin then for the rest of the teams.
I'll do a quick one then. I'll do Brentford and I won't go too much into the individuals. But I was staggered to see Brentford had 16 players going off for international duty. Roughly half of them full internationals, and I think the ones who probably did the best, I've got a couple of Danish internationals who played and Denmark won, I think 3-0 and kept their record going. They're now top 10 in the world. So that was the main one that stood out. But I was just staggered to see 16 players going off for international and then under 21 from a club like Brentford, and how times have changed.
Yeah,
the money of the Premier League, that the teams down the bottom coming up from the Championship can afford to go out and buy, a dozen internationals from, around the world, and that is the big difference with the Premier League and any other league in Europe now.
Yeah,
very good point, Rich. Very good point.
I'm going to jump into Tottenham. And obviously, the main thing coming out of international break is Harry Kane is back. I'm going to cop stick for this one.
You said that with a straight face.
Harry
Kane's back. What? There should be a couple more words after Harry Kane is back. What? Back in bed. Back in black. I mean, what?
Harry Kane, hat-trick hero against Albania. I just can't even say that with his face. I'm saying
it. Hero, come on.
I can't even say that with a straight face, like I'm meant to big it up. So yeah, Harry Kane, three goals against Albania. Sterling, it just tells you, Harry Kane, good result, good performance, match ball on, but no, Harry Kane is not back. Let's see him do it against somebody else. Newcastle, going to quickly move in to this one. The big one, Rob should know about this. Ryan Fraser had to pull out the Scotland team. Out injured. Unfortunately got pulled off. Or pulled out, not pulled off.
He's had a head wobble. I know, he should do this.
Rich, go.
Yeah.
It's not Rich next.
All right.
I'll
I don't know.
Come on,
I think
Leeds. Leeds were next. Leeds are my next team, and for Leeds, they had a few players out on international duty. Probably not as many as the majority of Premier League teams. Marquee player probably Alioski for North Macedonia, who got a goal against Iceland, I believe, earlier today. And the other game that they played, it was another 5-0 victory for North Macedonia. So he's been putting up good performances for a team that is really overperforming probably what they should be given the players that they have.
I think the big story, or two stories out of Aston Villa. Aston Villa again had a good number of internationals going away, but the two things that jumped out to me, one is Scotland, and I think
John McGinn's the greatest footballer
McGinn is fast becoming, a bit of a, the hero for Scotland. Very good, important player. Really starting to, be quite a dominant player in that team. And the praise I saw for him online from Scotland fans was huge. And a lot of Scotland fans talking about that being the best team. And Rob, you'll have your view on this, their best team in a decade or two. And really starting to feel that they play as a team. So McGinn, full of praise. And then the other story, which I think is just, is great, was Matty Cash making his debut for Poland. And, by all accounts, coming on in a position he said he was never, ever going to play for a country he never intended to play for. And it just shows, power of international football now. They had, I think, another 6 or 7, internationals going out there. But I think those were the two that stood out.
Yeah. Going to move on to Norwich. Not great, but we're going to talk about Mason Mount. A little bit of controversy here with his comments. Out the England team. Has turned round and said that the reason he's injured is because he's not played a lot for Norwich. And that is the reason why he's now currently injured. So not going to take part for England. So, yeah, he's going to blame his club for not playing him enough. And also, Norway have a little bit of an injury or player crisis. Erling Haaland, as we know, is out. But so is his Norwich Norwegian star, Matthias Norman, is out because he's been playing through the pain barrier with a torn ligament in the pelvis. Painful. He has been going through.
Yep. Well, I think probably next to me, I'm going to go with Leicester. Leicester, probably one of the bigger teams I have left. And with Leicester, they had quite a few players out, internationals, Vestergaard and Schmeichel, the main two for obviously Denmark, who played the Faroe Islands. Schmeichel featured, but didn't manage to keep a clean sheet. Vestergaard on the bench. Castagna played centre-back in the win over Estonia for Belgium, but Dennis Pratt did not, even though he's out on loan at the moment. Other than that, no one's overly featured. Daka's in the team for Zambia in a few days when they play their game. And then you have Iheanacho and Wilfred Ndidi, obviously playing for Nigeria. 2-0 win over Liberia, but neither managed to get a goal or an assist in the game. Iheanacho subbed out late, but no injury worries for Leicester, really.
And for me, the next team, very quickly, Watford. Watford again had 9 full internationals travelling. No real standout performances from any of them. I think again, like Brentford, I was just staggered to see 9 full internationals. I think another 9 under 21 players going from Watford off to the games, and just internationals from all over Europe, Africa, etc. And it made me realise actually as well, Watford I think have 5 players they could lose for the AFCON. Is that I look at the AFCON through the eyes of City, Chelsea and Liverpool and how it's going to affect the title race. I think it's actually going to have even bigger impact down in the bottom half of the table because, there are a lot of international players from African clubs now playing across the entire Premier League. And there's going to be players down the bottom who are potentially going to lose 4 or 5 players, 2 or 3 in their first 11s. And that's going to potentially have a big impact too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thanks for that, Rich. Going to move on.
Going to make it very interesting after Christmas, isn't it? Very interesting.
Yeah, it's just going to throw a...
Going to move on to Wolves. The big news is Conor Coda is going to start against San Marino tomorrow night, but he won't be captain. Gareth Southgate has confirmed that he's going to start, but he won't be captain. So it looks like Harry Kane is going to restart again tomorrow. So England get that point. And the other bit of news that's not quite, it's just come out over the last few days, and it's a transfer rumour, does involve us, but Wolves on loan striker Hwang Hee-chan, Wolves are trying to get that move from a loan to a permanent because of interest from Manchester City and Liverpool. So they want to get that nailed up quickly.
Right. Don't believe that for a second, but yeah, we've got a couple teams left now for myself. Start off with Palace. They've had a couple players go out on international duty, none of which have really done anything. But the big news, really, from a Palace perspective, is obviously Conor Gallagher coming into the England squad to replace Raheem Sterling. Whether he'll play against San Marino, I don't think he will. Might get a couple of minutes off the bench, but other than that, I don't think it's going to... The international break is going to have a big impact on Palace, really.
Yeah. And then...
Good luck to Conor Gallagher, though.
Yeah. I think,
Rich,
good luck for
hit us up, mate. What have you got next?
I think the next one, Arsenal, they had 19 players going off on international duty, although interestingly, and again, probably similar at City, 6 of their full internationals going off were players they've got loaned out at other clubs. So 13 on the books at Arsenal, they've got 6 full internationals out on loan. Players in most of the big squads, I think. No particularly major news. I haven't managed to find out too much about what went on with, Partey and Aubameyang and Pepe, etc., all playing in the African qualifying. Again, another team who's going to lose 4 of their higher profile players to the African nations, and that will affect them hugely. But at the moment, look, all 3 looking like they should qualify, with the Ivory Coast and Ghana. I think a lot of other players from them, like Leno and Ramsdale, etc., were in squads but not necessarily playing. So a reasonably quiet one. Although I'm sure Kieran Tierney will be in a very good mood knowing that Scotland are now guaranteed a playoff.
Why he's Irish? Oh wait,
playoff game.
Martin.
Yeah, I'm going to go down to the South Coast. Southampton, who have got quite a few injuries. Southampton boss started off with just 2 or 3 injuries before the international break, and he's now been hit with 5 or 6 players coming back injured. So I'm going to quickly go through him. There's Armando Broja, the Albanian striker, who has got an ankle injury, and he's currently on loan from Chelsea. So that's another Chelsea loan player injured. We're then going to move into very quickly. They've got Jack Stevens, James Ward-Prowse, and they've got Tino Livramento, all injured as well. These and Nathan Redmond. The thing is, at the moment, Nathan Redmond and James Ward-Prowse have got mysterious illnesses. So let's hope there's no blur working around the Southampton training ground in the end from their point of view. But Southampton, the big news is for them. They've gone from 2 to 3 injuries to 5 or 6, thanks to internationals.
Ryan, what have you got left?
My final team I've got left, pretty quiet international break, really. Everton, you have probably main players probably being Jordan Pickford, obviously on England duty, where he did a good enough job against Albania. At the end of the day, it's not going to be a massive game for him. He didn't have Richarlison featuring for Brazil in their game. Play Argentina in a few days, so whether he will feature then, I don't really know. But other than that, nothing to really say about Everton. Couple players played, but nothing big to talk about.
Richard?
Yep. I think Brighton, again, a number of internationals. And I think the main news I picked up looking through the Brighton press was mainly about all their players being left on the bench. I think Trossard, who has played quite a few times for Belgium recently, was left on the bench. I think Sanchez for Spain and Moda for Poland, both left on the bench. So that seemed to be the main news, that Brighton players were given a nice rest on the bench and will come home healthy. So much so that Graham Potter's sleeping rough for charity was the main football news connected with the team. And probably for the interest of speed, I'll add in Burnley. Burnley had a healthy 7 players going off for full internationals, and by far the best one was Roberts going off to join the Welsh team, who qualified without playing, actually qualified for the playoffs before backing that up with a five goal win against Belarus, which cemented that for themselves anyway. Don't look like they'll catch Belgium, but have a good chance now, if they can beat the Czech Republic, to get an easier qualifying game. And the mighty Dragons will be going to the World Cup for the first time since, I think,
no personal bias there from you, Rich. But yeah, well done to Wales. Very well done to Wales. Martin, I think you've got 2 teams left, right?
I've got one. I've got Newcastle. Newcastle, done Wolves. Yeah, Newcastle is the one. And the main thing is they've had 7 players go out on international, from what I saw up at reading of the Newcastle Chronicle earlier on today. And the big thing is, like I said, Ryan Fraser, he's out of the Scotland squad. Sorry, Rob. He's out, mate. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing for you, but yeah, Jamal Lewis got called up by Northern Ireland. We had Miguel Almiron, or is it Almiron? Got called up. There, Almiron got called up by Paraguay, as he normally would. And there was Fabian Schär, Jeff Hendrick, Ismail Kraft, and Martin de Brackner got called up for Newcastle as well. So as far as I'm aware, there are no injuries, and they're all going to go back safe, which is good for Eddie Howe. And the other bit of news from Newcastle was they are looking at our very own Nathan Ake.
Oh, what a shock. Eddie Howe, Nathan Ake. Can I just say, by the way, yeah, it's been an international week, and international weeks are always very frustrating for us, because I think I can conclusively say that we're all a little bit half-assed on when it comes to international football. Rich, tell me that it's good news and we've not got another international break for what? After Christmas is the next one? Please tell me that.
Yeah, I thought the next one's like March.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah,
Thank
it
goodness.
is
Right,
March,
so we don't have to deal with this crap again until March.
Brazil played January.
And I think it's phenomenal. Yeah, but there's no Premier League break as a result of it, though, is there? Okay. I think it's great that the Premier League, like Rich made the statement before, so much depth in the Premier League internationally. I think that's absolutely fantastic. We have got the finest football in this country, full stop. Yeah, other than that, not much else to say. Thank you for joining us on TheTwenty. We love doing this show. Usually it's more focused in our wheelhouse of actual Premier League football and not this international stuff. But obviously we want to keep this show going on a weekly, regular schedule. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for watching this back as a VOD when it's a VOD. And we will see you in the next one. More content coming very soon to your door. Thank you very much. Bye for now.
Hello.
Goodbye.